Hello, what we're going to do is we're going to walk through the following program that was created in Python. So what this program does is it requests 5 test scores as input and displays the average after dropping the 2 lowest test scores. The scores are placed into the list scores. The 2 lowest test scores are removed from the list, and a for loop is used to sum up the remaining test scores, and the len function is used to calculate the average. So what we've done right here is we've just gone ahead and we've created the variable scores and assigned it the empty list. And then what I've done next is I've created a list to hold the test numbers. And the reason why I've done that is now I can go ahead and use a for loop to get the input from the user. So instead of using five input statements, I'm able to go ahead and use a for loop. And if you go ahead, I'm iterating for I in tests. So I'm iterating through my list of tests. And then what I'm doing is I'm grabbing what specifying enter the score for test I, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, as the for loop iterates through this list. And what I'm doing then is I'm appending scores, or appending whatever score was entered to my scores list. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the 2 lowest scores after I've inputted my test scores. So in order to do that, I'm using the min function that we went over previously to remove the first minimum score, and the min to remove the second minimum score. And then I'm using the remove method to remove that minimum score by passing in that value. And then what I'm doing next is I'm setting total equal to 0. That's the variable I'm accumulate my total test score in. And then I'm iterating through my list of scores. And for each score, I'm adding it to my total. So what this will do is it'll iterate through my remaining lists of scores, which will include 3 scores, and I'll add each score to my total. And then finally I'll calculate and display the average. So I'll set my average equals to my total divided by the length of my scores lists, and then I'll go ahead and display that value. So let me just go ahead and click on Run Module. I'll enter the first test score, 95, 85, 75, 90, and 100. So it should drop my 85 and 75, and I should get an average of 95. And it does. So it looks like it's working correctly. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to go ahead and we'll walk through this code using the Python tutor. So do a Control C. Go ahead and type in Python tutor and click on Python tutor, and I will go ahead and drop my code in there, and I will visualize my execution. So if we move through, it sets scores equal to an empty list. And then what it's done is it sets test equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then for I in test, so I is 1, I need to enter my input, so I'll enter 85, click submit. So now num is equal to 85. I'll click on forward, and now num has been appended to my scores list. Go ahead and click forward. I'll enter 90, click submit. Go ahead and click on forward. So now it's appended 90. Go ahead and click on forward again. It'll ask me for an additional input. I'll enter 100. Click on submit. Click on forward. It'll append that score. Click on forward. I is now 4. And looks like it's asking me for input, so I'll enter a score 75, click submit. Click on forward, it's appended 75. I'll click on forward again. Go ahead and enter 65. I'll click on submit. So click on forward again, it's added 65. I'll click on forward, it'll drop through. Now, since there's no more items in my test list, so it'll call minimum, it'll set minimum grade equal to my min score. So min grade equals to 65, and then what it should do now, it removed that 65 from my list. Then it'll go ahead, look for the next minimum score. That minimum grade now is 75. And what it'll do is it'll go ahead and remove 75 from my list. So it's done that. It'll go ahead next and create a total variable. And then it'll go ahead and iterate through my lists. It'll add 85, get 85 for my first score. It'll add that to total. It'll get 90. It'll add that to total. It's now 175. It'll get 100, it'll add that, so now it's 275, and we've iterated through all the items in our scores list, so it should calculate my average now, which is 91.6667, and then we'll click on forward, and it'll go ahead and print my average grade. So this kind of walks you through so you can actually visualize the creation of the lists and how items are actually removed from the list. So if you're having any trouble understanding lists when you're using your code, this Python Tutor visualization tool will provide a great help so you can actually see what items are getting added to your lists, what index they are currently at, and what happens when you remove, append, so on and so forth to the list. So that's all I wanted to cover on lists in Python. So we will talk to you next time.